You ever notice when you're rolling with a really big, strong guy, sometimes they feel really strong and really athletic and powerful. And then other times you'll roll with a big, strong guy who probably also has really good lifts in the gym, and they don't really feel strong at all. They don't feel coordinated. They're not expressing their strength properly. What's going on here? Well, one of the things I think is the ability to rotate properly and the ability to express your strength in the rotational plane. In this video, we're going to talk about what proper rotation means, why it's important for grappling, how it affects your injury risk and your performance, and we're going to talk about some strategies to train it. I'm Jason Kapnick. I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt with over 20 years of strength and conditioning experience, and I train grapplers how to be stronger, more durable, and harder to break. In this video, we're going to talk about rotation. So everyone kind of understands that rotation plays a role in, throws and suplexes and takedowns and whatnot. But I'm also going to put it to you that it has a very subtle role and a very important role in the way we express strength in almost everything we do. Our bodies are wired for rotation, whether it's the fascial slings, the way the muscles are oriented, the way we walk, even down to our DNA, right, is a double helix. We were built to rotate. And if we're not training rotation in the gym, we're leaving a lot of performance on the table in ways that are going to rob you of your ability to express your strength on the mat. So we're going to dive into kind of three aspects of rotational training. First, we're going to talk about the idea of the coiling core and kind of how rotation works. Then we're going to start talking about what the planes of motion are and kind of how we express strength in three dimensions. And with those two ideas in mind, you'll have a much better idea of why rotational strength is so important for grappling. And then we're going to talk about how we actually develop that. What tools can we use? We're going to talk about rope flow, landmines, maces, clubs, and where they should fit into your training. Let's get into it. Okay, so now we want to talk about how rotation actually occurs in the body. And I think the best model for this is David Weck's idea of the coiling core. For those that don't know, David Weck's the guy that invented the Bozu ball. He's very much out there. I'm not going to say I agree with everything he's done, but I think he's a really smart guy. And when it comes to rotational mechanics and the mechanics of gait, the way we walk and we run, he has a lot of really good stuff. And the idea of the coiling core is that we create a short side and a long side. So if my weight is on my right side becomes the short side here. There's a little bit of a side bend, and this is really important. My left shoulder is a little bit higher than my right shoulder here. My right lat is packed. My head is over my foot, and this creates a really strong balance point here. My left side becomes my long side, and when it comes to just walking gait, this is less apparent. But when it comes to something like striking, we can see that this side becomes very long here. And this side is loose and open, and then the right side is tight. I'm coiled to my right here. And then when I want to create power, basically there's a transfer of weight, and we reverse from the right side being the short side to the right side being the long side here. And this transfer of weight and this uncoiling of the core and coiling to the other side, that's how we create power. So we kind of store up the potential energy here, like we're twisting something, and then that spring-like power comes back to the other side. And this is a really important concept that's going to have a lot of application, as we'll see. Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about here, I'm just going to do a really quick primer on kind of what the three planes of motion are and how they relate to rotational movement. So you have your sagittal plane, which is kind of forward and back. You can think of like bicep curl or leg extension, or something that's going to become really important is hip extension here. So it's straight and back. The sagittal plane divides my body into right and left. And the second plane that we're going to talk about is the frontal plane. And the frontal plane divides my body into front and back. Things like side bends you can think of as far as exercise, just any kind of lateral shifting where I'm in a plane. And then finally, I have the transverse plane, which divides me into top and bottom. So any kind of, med ball throw or cable chop, those are kind of your traditional transverse plane exercises. And the way that I would think about rotation is that power is created in the sagittal plane. So big muscles like the glutes and the quads, they create a lot of power. And so we create power in the sagittal plane. Then that power tends to get transferred in the frontal plane. So if you think about, for example, a baseball swing, right? This hip extension, sagittal plane, is what gets the motion going. And then we see a transfer. So that power gets kind of transferred in the frontal plane. And then finally, it gets expressed in the rotational plane, the transverse plane. Okay. So where a lot of rotational training falls short is that it only trains the transverse plane. That we see med ball throws, we see cable chops, see things like that, and they look like the purest expression of rotation that there is, and they can be really good for very high speed kind of rotational demands. For example, swinging a golf club, a baseball bat, throwing a baseball. These are things that are very low load demand, right? A golf club weighs, I don't know how much, but less than a pound, I'm sure. Same for a baseball. They're very light and they move very quickly. In grappling, we tend to be moving very big loads. For example, another human being, when we think about throwing, when we think about arm drags, we think about really all of our movement in grappling involves moving another person or moving our own body. So where a lot of rotational training falls short is it's just taking place in the transverse plane. So what we want to do in part is find strategies that integrate all three planes of motion. And the best way to do that is going to be with the landmine. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But the other point that I want to make is that overall general strength, like for example, squatting or deadlifting or kettlebell swings, things that are very traditionally sagittally plane focused, they can still produce tremendous rotational power. So it's still very important to become strong and to get good at, being able to just move a heavy load regardless of what plane it's in. Can you use the strategies as far as muscle contraction and tension and whatnot? Can you just move a large load regardless of plane? So the rotational component fits in with that, but it's not the entirety of our training. So again, just to summarize here, power gets created in the sagittal plane, it gets transferred in the frontal plane, and then it tends to be expressed in the transverse plane. And we'll use these terms as we get into the training strategies. All right, we're going to get into some actual meat and potatoes here of training strategies. And we're going to see that these things kind of fit into two categories. One is teaching our body to rotate more efficiently and more effectively. And then the second one, we're going to see some direct strength building. And there's going to be some that kind of cross the bridge between the two. But the first thing I want to show you here is rope flow. So rope flow, I think, is one of the best ways to teach your body how to rotate properly. It's deceptive. You're going to look at rope flow and you're going to be like, kind of, what is that? And that's kind of my first reaction to it too when I first saw it many years ago. I can tell you that rope flow has had probably the biggest impact on my training of almost anything that I've done, which sounds crazy when you think about, heavy Zercher squats and, dumbbell pressing, the landmine, all these big, heavy exercises. How can just this lightweight rope have such a big impact on training? And the answer is it really teaches you the timing and the flow and the fluidity, how to transfer your weight, how to stay loose, and how to rotate in a way that really maintains the energy. So once the rope gets swinging, the more efficient you are, the easier it feels. So it really teaches you to rotate properly. This video overall is not just like a how-to video. This is more of just kind of some strategies, and there's a lot of great rope flow accounts on YouTube. I'll link some of them in the description. But just to give an intro here, what we do with the rope flow, most basically, you can just start with these wheels here, this underhand matador it's called. And so you see my weight is on this side. I have a short side and a long side, and I can start turning it from side to side here. And as I do that, I start to feel the fluidity of the rope. And this teaches me how to rotate properly, okay? So then I can get into what's called a dragon roll here. So I'm not jumping over the rope, but my rotation is what drives the rope here, okay? we can get into even more direct kind of rotation stuff where it starts looking a lot more rotational like a golf swing. And just by doing this, you're just going to feel where your inefficiencies are. And again, it's kind of like, it's hard for me to explain to you. You just kind of have to feel it. This rope here, you can buy really expensive ropes. I actually have some. This is just like an arborist rope from Amazon that I cut and just tied knots in. And this works great. Really recommend getting into rope flow. All right, so the next set of exercises I'm going to talk about here are swinging clubs and maces, things like that. And what this is going to do for you is it's going to help open up your upper spine, your shoulders, and prime them for rotation. There's a little bit of a rotational component, which we'll talk about as we get into the exercises itself. This is great for just teaching your body to take that force from the ground and relax into it and return that power to the implement. One of the things we'll probably talk about in a future video is the idea of tension and relaxation. And a lot of times our weightlifting efforts are very high tension stuff. But if we're only high tension on the mat, we just feel really stiff. We're very easy to counter. We burn a lot of energy. It's not good, right? We want to be fluid on the mat. And the mace and the rope, the mace, I mean the ropes too, but the maces and the clubs here, they're a great implement for kind of teaching you how to be tense when you need it and then relax when you need it. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple of these exercises. I'll talk about them a little bit. Again, this isn't necessarily a how-to video, kind of just to give you guys some strategies for, how you should go about training in a way that's going to have the most impact on the mat. And the focus of that, obviously, today is rotation. So the first one is just a mace swing. I'm going to show you that. Hopefully it doesn't do anything too crazy to the microphone. I'll mute it later. I have to. But I'm just going to take it here, and I'm going to swing it behind my head and bring it back down, okay? So you see it's going around my head. You can see there's a little bit of a weight transfer left to right. I can do it less with the weight transfer and bias my upper body a little bit more. Or I can start really emphasizing the weight transfer and make it a little bit more rotational here. And both are great. I really recommend that. Club swinging, also fantastic. It becomes a one-armed version. We have the club mill here. And you can see this looks a lot like throwing, okay? There's that weight transfer, that shift. And it's really going to teach you, again, to just be loose with the upper body. I also have this here. This is actually from Weck Method. It's got some shot in it. You can probably hear it. And the weight shifts a little bit, which can kind of give you some good feedback on just being even more efficient. And I'm basically going to do the same kind of exercises, club mills, another one. I'm not sure the name of this one. Maybe shield cast. Doesn't really matter what the name is. But these things where I learned to be loose with my upper body and create motion from rotation go a long way towards keeping your shoulders, elbows, wrist, neck healthy. And they also go a long way towards teaching you to express your strength on the mat. Okay, next up, we have the landmine motions. I'm really excited to share these landmine motions with you. I think it's a change in paradigm in how we think about power and explosiveness in sports. Olympic lifting is great. It's very high demand. It's very technical. And, unfortunately for actual sport, it's very linear. The landmine allows us to perform these ballistic, almost Olympic lift-like motions in a way that is so germane to rotation and authentic human movement. I mentioned earlier that traditional rotational training, it tends to just be only in the transverse plane. We don't get that opportunity to create the power in the sagittal plane, transfer it in the frontal plane. We're only doing the rotational part, which isn't as useful, especially for grapplers, right? We talked about how baseball and golf were typically rotating with very light implements. Well, the landmine allows us to use some really, really heavy implements and build strength. So let me show you a couple exercises I use here. I'm going to show you the landmine snatch and the landmine clean and jerk. And basically, we set up for it in a split stance. And what I like to do is almost imagine that I'm swinging a baseball bat. So I have my right side here as my short side, my left side here is my long side, and I'm going to kind of come down to the bar here. Okay. So this hip extension is what's going to rip the bar off the floor, as you'll see, and then it's going to come across my body for the clean. Okay. So from here, I come off the ground right here. So my right side was my short side. Now my left side's my short side. And I'm actually going to go right into a landmine jerk here. Right here. Now my right side's my short side again. My left side's become my long side. This is a fantastic exercise. You can train it with similar rep schemes to how you would do the Olympic lifts, a lot of low rep kind of sets, singles, doubles, maybe even triples. I'm also going to show you the landmine snatch. We'll do this off the other side here. So in the landmine snatch, I go from the floor to straight to my finish position in one motion. I'm going to start off the left side here. So again, I kind of almost act like I'm swinging a baseball bat right here. I'm rotated to here, and I'm going to bring it here, and I'm going to come right into my snatch right here. You can see now my right side is my short side, my left side is my long side. These will make you so strong on the mat. All right, thanks for watching today's video. I think that rotational movement is really the foundation of all human movement. And jiu-jitsu is so dynamic and unconstrained that it really doesn't take place in the straight lines that traditional weightlifting typically encompasses. So when you learn to rotate properly, your strength on the mat is going to feel really strong. You'll have the ability to express that strength in 3 dimensions. We went over a few different exercises today, and the question always becomes, where do these fit into my routine? How do I program these? Well, when it comes to the rope flow, that's something you can use as a warm-up, something you can do almost every day. I like to go in the cold plunge and then come out and do rope flow in the sun for 10 minutes or so. The maces I'll do as part of my regularly scheduled strength and conditioning program. I usually use them early in my workout as kind of a way to start getting in the groove. It is something that I progress. I try to get heavier over time and get stronger with them. And the landmine exercises, the snatch and the clean and jerk that we went over today, some other good landmine exercises are the step press and the screwdriver split switch. But these landmine exercises, I program them as major lifts as part of my strength and conditioning routine. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, definitely drop them below. If you like the video, if you have any comments, please put them below. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you're looking to take your training to the next level and you think I can help you, please do reach out. I train people in person here in South Florida. I'm near Boca Raton and Deerfield Beach. I have a professional grade facility here. So I do in-person training as well as online training, which can kind of come in a few different forms. I do online programming as well as coaching calls. If you have any questions, send me an email at jason.kapnick@gmail.com. Put coaching in the subject line, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.